everyone, and welcome to Bridge to the Galaxy. I am the host, Tanys Coughlan, and we are joined today by an awesome guest. His name is Neil Gaur, and we're going to find out more about Neil. So Neil, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tanys. So good to be here with you.
It's great to have you. We're honored. Tell us a little about your journey, because I know that you've had quite an interesting set of downloads and all of that has guided you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, usually when I tell my journey, it's kind of like I always have to start at birth, like how
Of
I was
course.
brought up. And I was raised I was born into an Indian family, so we actually were a Hindu family, right? My parents are still Hindu. So I pretty much just did what I was told. I followed the rites and the rituals. I did all the things that my parents wanted me to do when it came to the religion. But not until, actually just recently, I really had a moment to reflect on this. And I never really thought of like the end result. Like even though I was Hindu and I was going to temple, I was even like an Indian kid singing songs. I was singing songs in front of hundreds of people in the temple that my parents taught me. And but I never really thought of the end result. God was never a part of it, even though technically that's what I was doing everything for, right? And then as I was growing up, as I was like 17, 18, 1999, 2000, I started realizing that there were a lot of similarities in other religions as there is in to Hinduism. But I was told ever since birth that Hinduism, polytheistic religions, right? That's a whole podcast on its own when you talk about polytheism, because Hinduism technically really is actually a monotheistic religion. Like that's a whole other story. But so let's just say pagan religions that the world calls it, compared to monotheistic religions, were completely evolved separately and there was no connection to one another. And I was starting to see that there was a lot of similarities. And the I used to, like, for years I would talk crap on being a Hindu, but only because I would say I was an atheist Hindu, because I did what I was told, but I was never really believed anything. But now I've shifted that to from the victim to the empowered statement, I guess, which is that because I was raised Hindu, I was never told it was the only way. Okay. So many religions in the world, I don't have to name them here, had tell you that this is the only way. But Hinduism, even in the ancient scriptures, and if you have any sort of intellectual study of the Hindu scriptures, it speaks about many religions all around the world, for many different people, for many different cultures, and many different ages of time.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, there's diversity in experiences. And a quote in the Rig Veda is, there are many pathways to the same destination. That's a Rig Veda quote, the original Hindu scripture quote. And that quote is about why there are so many religions. Okay. So
Definitely.
because of that, I was able to celebrate Christmas. I knew about Moses, I knew about Jesus. And I started seeing that Jesus Christ and Krishna had very similar story, right? Like, for example, this is just like scratching the surface. Krishna had a virgin mother, was born to a virgin mother, had a carpenter as a father. He died in the same area that Jesus supposedly had a spear put in his side. He had an arrow put in his side, right? He was known as the savior. He even said, "I am the way and the light." That's a Krishna quote. Okay. so, so
Okay.
yeah, so I started wondering, like, wait a second, is Christianity completely a fabrication of old religions and Jesus never existed? That was my original thought. Now I know Yeshua, I believe Yeshua did exist, right? But I completely, like, at first was kind of like, oh my God, maybe this is a recreation of older texts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started seeing that there were similarities into flood stories around the world. Noah's story. Many ancient scriptures also talk about the flood stories. So when I was like 17, 18, I started looking and saying, okay, is there a root of all religion? Like, where is the root? If we're seeing all these similarities, that means from pagan religions and monotheistic religions, that means there must be some sort of common root that we all came from. So in 2000, after I graduated high school, I started going down and researching. I had the Quran, I'd have the Bible, I'd have the Old Testament, I'd have the Bhagavad Gita. I'd be at Panera Bread in California, highlighting sections that were similar and trying to find the root of everything. And as I was going further and further and back, by 2001, by the time I was like 19, I found the Sumerian scriptures, the Sumerian tablets, and the Sumerian tablets of creation. So known as the cradle of civilization, right? And even this again is a separate podcast because that's actually a misdirection. Known as the cradle of civilization, known as the original place where we started agriculture, which we started before, also known as the place where we first had written language, right? Written words, texts, and scriptures, the oldest scriptures in the world.
Yeah.
And they have a story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh is this hybrid giant that's from the gods and humans that's traveling the world and stumbles across a person called Utnapishtim, which is AKA Noah, meets a survivor of a great flood called Noah and his family on this island on his adventures. Well, two things right there. One thing, why is Noah's story in this ancient scripture that's like way, way old that isn't even connected to this, right? And then how come isn't Noah's story supposed to be a reset of the civilization and the world? Why were there other beings that were non-human giants living and still that survived during that time?
Yeah.
And then this took me to the Nephilim. There were giants here in those days, Old Testament texts. I realized that the Old Testament took almost everything verbatim from the Sumerian scriptures. But the biggest difference is that the translation in the Sumerian scriptures dating back 6,000 years before, when it says Elohim, Elohim was actually a plural. It was never God, and it was never a masculine God. It was androgynous, no gender identity to it, and it spoke about gods. So I started translating things in those texts, and when I went even deeper and started saying, okay, saying, the gods created us in their image and their likeness from the Sumerian tablets of creation, right? And then it says the gods from this planet in this area of the solar system that travel through it to Earth in this way. So I started wondering, wait a second, this is an extraterrestrial story. So is the ancient scriptures, is everything completely BS? There is no religion, there is no God, because it's all based on a sci-fi story from the ancients? Or could this actually have some relevance to it, and could they have actually been visited by beings from other planets? That started my whole journey, really. There's a story that comes after that, but that was when I first woke up to all of this.
So that certainly it opened your eyes to the fact that we are not alone in this universe, right?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
much more to it for sure. And the creation story is definitely one that is debated in many forums and stuff. So how did you get into, because I know that you've done certainly a deep dive in many of those topics that you spoke about. What has your journey been with the ET connection, with all of that?
Right. Well, I feel like I was blessed in the beginning to have everything that came at once, because not only was I looking at ancient history, the history of humanity, right? But then it immediately went into the ET connection, right, at the same time. And then if you look at what they're speaking about there seems to be metaphors within these scriptures for advanced quantum physics, vibration and frequency, right? And because I was very linear minded, raised in a conservative style Indian family, mathematics, I was like in calculus in like grade 9, you know what I mean?
Lucky
Because
you.
of
I'm not a
all,
math girl. So
well, then I rebelled against it, and now I don't know anything. And because of all of that, I couldn't find spirit without linear awareness. Okay. And so I started seeing that, wait a second, people are saying that these scriptures where it shows like a giant being on a throne and a wormhole and then a DNA spiral outside of it and a baby is actually a depiction of how they traveled here. And the DNA and that whole scripture, the tablet, is a representation of genetic manipulation. And so I started like looking deeper into the quantum physics part of it all, traveling into the quantum world. And that connected me, of course, to vibration and frequency. And vibration and frequency then took me back to the Eastern traditions. Oh, what's yoga? What's eating well? What's meditation? Oh, it's a organic way to implement quantum physics, which is that nothing is solid, all things vibrate. And through our vibration, we can shift into other levels of consciousness. And as I started understanding that, I realized that there were probably dimensions and realities stacked upon us where these beings exist. And maybe some of these ETs and angels that visited us came from those higher dimensions. And it doesn't mean that they're ultimately God, but they were tapped into a higher frequency, therefore able to access more data in the universe. And then when they came down, they knew that information, and we consider them gods. So this is all the same year, like ancient history, ETs, quantum physics, and consciousness. And if my organization, those are the three things: the true world history, extraterrestrial awareness, and the evolution of consciousness. Those are like, it's the trifecta right there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that I forgot your question because I went off on a tangent, but I think I
Oh,
answered some.
that's okay. You got that. Yeah, the ET awareness. Let's talk about that piece.
Okay. So then, so the ET thing was the most interesting to me for sure. Like I was definitely into history. I loved it, but when it connected to how we got to this planet and the seeding of humanity, right?
Mhm.
And so for the first 2001 to 2006, 7, I was deep into channeling information. After 2006, 7, I actually kind of rebelled against channeling for a while. Now I'm kind of feel like I'm in the middle ground and I still accept some channels. But I went so much into channeling information that even when I started my first events in 2008, I was touring around the US with a channeling of being from Sirius. We did 100 events in 1 year.
That's
So I
a,
was just receiving nonstop information about ETs, lives on other planets, all of this. And it was connecting a lot of dots for me. Towards the end of the channeling experience, 2006, 2008, is when I got into the UFO disclosure and the documents and what has been hidden by shadowy parts of the world governments. And, having that linear nuts and bolts kind of reality that they've been hiding things, including very advanced technology, with the messages coming from the universe, was really, I guess, my foundation for a lot of what I was learning. And now at this point, kind of just to fast forward, I feel that that's the ultimate reality, is that we're shifting into a world where not only are we shifting our consciousness, but when we shift our consciousness to this new octave of existence, we're moving into a reality where they already exist, the frequency in which they exist. Some people say, I'm jumping all over the place, but I know you're following
okay.
me.
I am. I'm
some
good. I'm with you.
you know some people say, like, why don't we see them if they're everywhere? Well, it's a vibratory frequency shift. It's
Yep.
quantum physics. They exist. We know for sure that we exist within limited bandwidths of frequency. We hear, see, smell everything within this frequency range. If your phase is a little bit out of it, you don't perceive it. But what's going on with actually parts of the universe and frequencies bombarding our planet, and our consciousness shifting, and the cycles of time that are around 25,100 years, we're in this upturn in consciousness. And as that happens, we're moving into this reality where we're going to have open communication with the ETs.
Yep.
But before we get there, there's a lot of trauma and baggage that we have from this life and other lives that we need to work through. And that's ultimately what we're seeing, I feel, manifest right now. So all this stuff is coming out, all this truth is coming out. And it's just kind of, to me, it's like a clearing process, for us to really let go of what we can't take with us into this new reality.
Absolutely. I think we're all doing that on an individual basis as well as the collective.
Yeah,
It's
I
very
agree.
much like this healing journey that we're going through as we raise the vibration of the earth, which we're seeing with the Schumann resonance and the solar flares. That's certainly raising consciousness as we raise the vibration of the earth, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
that chicken and the egg thing. We raise our consciousness, the earth rises, and we kind of bounce off that with each other, right?
yeah. And there's, even when I was listening to channelings, there's ET races that say that our ascension process is directly connected to them. And then as we're ascending, they're ascending. Like, even the system of Sirius. And then I don't know if you know Daryl Anka, you probably do,
Yep.
channels Bashar.
Yep.
He even says in his channelings, because I was deep into Bashar for years, like, and he was saying that, basically Sirius, the Essassani star, and Earth are this triangle, and you know how all stars are moving away from each other,
Yep.
and we're all going like way rapid, like a million miles per hour. Sirius, Asani, and Earth are in this lock, with each other, and they're moving together equally throughout space. And there's this frequency between us, I guess, in which when Earth ascends, all three of stars ascend at the same time.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
So
that
we're intrinsically connected to each other.
absolutely. For sure, yeah. And they're definitely coming forward with more and more message. I'm a channel as well. So I've been doing some channeling with Commander Ashtar and the Galactic Federation and stuff. So that certainly echoes what I've been getting as well in terms of channeled information.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite interesting. So what about the disclosure stuff that's coming out right now? What do you think about
Okay.
all of that?
Honestly, I gotta collect my thoughts because it's so much.
That's
Where do you
okay.
even, where to start? Because I have a tendency to like say too much or or jump all over the place. So it's like
It's all good. Whatever you feel comfortable
let's
sharing.
okay, let's just start with um I'll just do a really quick timeline of
Mhm.
it becoming serious, right?
Yeah, please.
uh, for ages, Project Mockingbird was a part of it, which was the CIA project in order to basically ridicule anything that goes against what the mainstream DoD and CIA narrative is, in which they even had members of the CIA that were on payroll for the CIA, but are also on payroll for the news station. So they're getting two paychecks, not because they were trying to get extra money, only because they had to play the role perfectly in order to be like, I'm a news anchor. I'm getting paid from the news agencies. But what they're really doing was pushing the narrative of whatever the shadowy parts of government wanted, including the JFK assassination,
Hmm.
right? So that was a huge part of actually ridiculing UFO subject. And for a while, there was what a lot of people, including Steve Bassett, calls a truth embargo. Basically, there's embargo on the truth, and we have to anything that comes out with ETs or UFO sightings, we need to have like some eerie music behind it, or some funny doo 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 music, or somebody needs to show up with alien outfit to ridicule it. And then all of a sudden, we see in around 2016, when Hillary was running for against Trump, there was a shift, and the moment the shift was when she was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. I don't know if you saw that one,
I didn't see
but
that. No.
okay, so this was the moment UAP first came out and the branding of the UAP. So first of all, it's common knowledge through actually leaked tapes from some of these late night talk show hosts that any politician, especially presidential candidate that goes on there, they talk about and they clear all the questions beforehand and the answers. Okay,
Yeah.
nothing is improvised there. It's too much at stake, especially during an election. So Jimmy Kimmel goes, um, well, I spoke to your husband about this, but I'm going to ask you, will you release the Area 51 documents? And she goes, Jimmy, they're no longer called for the UFOs. And she goes, they're no longer called UFOs, they're UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Rebranding of UFO to UAP,
Yeah.
shift in the next few weeks to not ridiculing anymore. The few months before that were the WikiLeaks documents. Tom DeLonge, Joe Podesta, Obama, Edgar Mitchell, in email threads talking about non-human intelligences in the email threads on WikiLeaks. So she had to get in front of it, right? So
Yeah.
this was the shift from it all. And now we've been seeing drops. Tom DeLonge came out, we've been seeing drip drops all the time. So now what's going on, fast forwarding to this moment, because many people listening may know about that part, but what's going on right now is it seems like there's a war behind closed doors in order to release this information. And now, because I'm so deep into this awareness and sharing it all the times and posting things on Instagram, the amount of hate I get for posting something that might be a document just for a government. The government said that they're going to pass a whistleblower act, and people like, how could you be posting this? Screw the government, right? The distrust for the government, I respect it, okay, but at the same time, you got to really take some time to see what's going on here. Many, like, if every single person within government knew about UFOs and ETs, it would be very hard to hide this information. A lot of them are deeply ingrained DoD officials that go beyond a presidential clearance. Some presidents have even said that they asked for information, and it was beyond them, and they couldn't even get it released. Congressional members over the last couple of years went and asked for, who's supposed to have top secret clearance, right? Went and asked for information, and they were told no. Okay, so yes, a lot of them are corrupt. A lot of them have weird belief systems. Some of them literally think that they're bringing in the second coming of Jesus by being evil. Like, again, that's another podcast.
Another whole podcast.
Like it's freaking wacky up in there, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and
again,
Stephen Greer talks about that too, how he's been approached by some of the higher ups that I can't get this information. You have this information. Can you share? And I think that's been instrumental in bringing this stuff forward as well. Of course, his whole project. Yeah,
I feel there's been a lot of like push from people like Greer and other people in this movement that they had to get behind it and come up with a trip disclosure narrative in order to release information, because the secret and the lies run so deep that when we really realize the truth, a lot of people are going to just be mind blown. And that's what's happening right now with congressional members, is they're hearing information, thinking, see, on some level, I feel their egos are being hurt because they're realizing that they thought they were government. Okay. And they're realizing this technology and awareness and military funds and black budget money, they thought they were getting cutbacks from the petrol industries. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they're realizing there's this whole corruption going on beyond their corruption that they don't even know what's up, and they're trying to figure it out. So now the mainstream people, like not mainstream people, but the people in our world, they see the corruption of these individuals about the things that I just mentioned, and because of that, they automatically a lot of people discredit what's going on at all. I think it's all a farce. But when I look at it, I'm seeing that there is a war, but maybe it's a war between egos of people trying to get some information out for good reasons, other people trying to get information out because they think that they should have known in the first place. You know what I mean? And then people trying to hide it because humanity's not ready to know we're alone, or they've murdered people and they've done all types of things in order to hide this information. So there's not just two factions here. There's probably like maybe even a dozen different ways to, this is manifesting. And a good case would be like, for example, a lot of the people behind this disclosure information happen to be Republicans, right? There's definitely Democrats as well. And a lot of these Republicans are hardcore Christians, fundamental Christians even. A few of them believe that these are the devil. Okay, UFOs are the devil. The others believe that they're aliens, and just because they're aliens doesn't mean God doesn't exist. They probably have a God too. You know what I'm saying? So like even within that niche, there's division in the belief and what is going on. And let me just say this before I hand it back to you, is what's really interesting to me is how much of these people, they don't know that much at all, but they literally own the airwaves and they own the newspapers. And they're saying that, oh, we don't believe these are extraterrestrials. We believe they've been here for a long time. And the reason why is because our sensors don't pick them up coming in from outer space. We pick them up in our atmosphere and under the ocean. Well, that's the first one to say that our sensors are more advanced than they are, right? That we're able to do that. And secondly, that doesn't, just because we're seeing them here, it doesn't mean that we're not being interacted with ETs. So they're thinking that maybe they're humans that evolved, and which is also probably the case too, because I think that's actually happening as well.
Yeah.
And so many people in Congress, in the governments, are thinking they're not extraterrestrials. And the other thing is that they're thinking they're either humans that have been here for a long time, they're either extraterrestrials, or they're interdimensional beings, and meaning that they came in from another reality, power reality, and not from outside of space.
Yeah. I'm on the interdimensional beings wagon for that. That's definitely, I've had communication with them and seen them and that sort of thing. So I'm being a Galactic Ambassador, that tends to be something that happens for me. So, but I think there is a bit of all of that, though. I don't think it's just one. I think it's all of that together. I think we do have some here. I think, there are some humans that are evolved from some of the genetic testing and stuff that they've done and that kind of thing. So, when do you think that humanity will be ready for all of this? Because I think that there's a shift. There's been this shift, like you were saying, in terms of going towards more disclosure. When do you think, or when have you heard that we'll be seeing more of a, say, a visual or mainstream kind of contact with more ETs in a public way?
Right. So I just listened to Richard Dolan on the Truth About Everything podcast, which is like a mainstream podcast with Mr. Kaku, because obviously a lot of mainstream podcasts, including Joe Rogan, are bringing these people on now, right? And he was saying in there that he doesn't think that there's going to be any real disclosure, and it's going to just keep going back and forth like this for a long, long time. And so I was tuning into that, and for my opinion on that is neglecting consciousness, the cycle of time, the evolution going on this planet, is looking at it from a purely linear perspective. So I feel that there's definitely people that want to basically just cancel this whole thing that's coming out right now. But the things that they said in Congress, right? The things that Grush said, for example, when he was asked in the congressional hearing last year, I think it was last year, why how are they coming into our reality? Projections of higher consciousness set in Congress. Like, break that down in itself. All right, we can go on for that forever. Like, whoa, what is going on? Right. So this is the kind of information that is coming out. We need to give credit to the fact that this has been fringe for so long and wasn't out there on this level, and now it is. And now why is that happening? Because there's going to be a moment in our reality, in our future, where we're going to have interaction with these beings. Now, whether it's going to happen overnight or within the next few years or later, I think it's going to happen sooner than later, because what we're hearing from these whistleblowers are that the governments are already in contact with these beings, interacting with them, dissecting them, communicating with them, having their craft, finding dead bodies. I mean, it's not like we have to go through a portal. We just have to open the right door when we go into the White House.
Yes, exactly.
That's literally how close it is. You don't even need to meditate to get there. You just need to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of these whistleblowers, Greer's DC hearing that happened after the congressional hearing too, that they were like the things that they've seen and been interacting with people on my show as well. I was working with Clifford Stone for years. I don't know if you know Clifford Stone, but he is the UFO crash retrieval guy. Like, out of the whole community in the world of disclosure, queer people, whistleblowers, he was firstly one of Greer's whistleblowers, and then he became his own thing because of how much information he had. But he was the one person that kept talking about the UFO crash retrieval. He lived in Roswell. He was deployed in Roswell, and myself and Paula Harris went and visited him in Roswell before he passed away a few years ago. And he had documents all over his house of the declassified and even classified documents that he had about UFO crash retrievals, and no one else was talking about it. And a lot of people thought he's crazy, but of course the people in our world didn't. They really loved it. And then all of a sudden, this UFO retrieval program comes out and starts validating almost everything that he told me. And so they've been collecting this information, this awareness. Now, to answer your question on when disclosure will happen, of course, I don't know the exact time or date, but I feel that we're rapidly picking up momentum for it. And there was one ex-CIA agent that also now speaks at UFO conferences. Forget his last name. His first name is John. And he said that the memo got out to the government that they're going to be landing in 2027. And that they need
That's
to,
what I've heard
yeah,
on multiple fronts, like from other channelers and from, my conversations with them and that kind of thing. That's what I've heard. It's
I think so.
27.
Like, if you really look at the control that's going on the planet, the like the outright atrocities happening from governments, right?
Yeah.
And again, not to talk about the truth behind these wars that are going on right now, and the lies and corruption from even the people that we consider the bad guys. I mean, the good guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, just so much manipulation and lies that there's this chokehold on society, and all it's doing is dividing us more from the common person.
Mm-hmm.
the citizens of these areas, and we're being divided through ideology, and the ideology is being pushed from the top down.
Yeah.
And so it's getting to a point that if I was an ET, I'd be like, well, now is the time.
Yeah.
And there was definitely something that I also got into early, which was quarantine. The whole aspect that we were under quarantine from this, but from the information that I'm reading, researching many different areas, I would say that quarantine is now over. But the reason why we're not interacting with them one-on-one right now, even though some people are, is because the level of conscious humanity isn't really ready to, on a collective level, just to walk up to them and interact. So again, that goes into all the stuff that's happening right now.
But we're having
Um,
trouble interacting with each other.
exactly, yeah.
Right? You put in different species and different races that don't look the same. It's
Straight
going
up.
it's going to be a bit shocking
Crazy.
for people.
So in 3 years, imagine, like, I feel that the world, like, besides the ETs coming down to Earth, right? Say that they don't come down for another 3 to 4 years. Just the way the Earth is going now, and the way people are waking up, like
Hmm.
like I'm actually in the process of coming up with a YouTube live for my channel called "Everything They Do Backfires." Okay, that's what it's going to be called.
Yeah,
Because if you look at all the things that they've tried to put in order to control us, it's literally just waking more people up,
it
you
is.
know? So in 3 to 4 years, I feel that a lot more people are going to be awake to the truth.
Yeah, I agree. I think the ascension process is already on its way, right? We had the harmonic convergence in 2012, and that started some of it. And then, like you were saying, there's been some key instances in
Hmm.
Congress and everything that has certainly pushed that agenda as well. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a very interesting Earth within the next few years. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
it is. It is. Oh my God. The world as we know it.
Yeah,
And we haven't even spoke about AI and what's going to happen with that. Oh
that's
my
another
God.
whole thing, isn't it?
Oh my God. Like the information I've been, because I watch a lot of AI related videos and the new technologies coming out and stuff because I just want to, like, I'm really interested in that. And it's the most game changing thing in the world. In 3 years, 50% of all jobs are gone. Right now, actually, right now, 50% of all jobs should be gone now. The reason why they're not is because they know it's going to crumble society, that they're holding back the technology.
Yeah.
They're not releasing it all. So they're figuring out ways to implement it.
Well, and what are we going to do then? We're going to have to change how we
Yeah,
do money, how we do exchange. All of those things are going to have to change.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, even like we have quantum computing now, and quantum computing can do something in 1 second that used to take a computer 1,000 freaking years to do.
Yeah.
Okay, the process. And now quantum computing with AI, we have enough data from the stars that if you put somebody in a room to read it, it will take him 10,000 years to read it. Okay. Now, how long does it take? 1 day.
Wow.
And they've now zeroed in and signaled in to all these anomalies, frequencies, and radio signals coming to Earth from different stars that they would never have got to because it would have taken them thousands of years to look at. And now we're able, so this technology could actually lead us to maybe even realizing all the life that's out there in the universe. And I know people have their opinions on it, good or bad. Ultimately, it's inevitable. It's being
Yeah.
implemented. um, and that's why nothing is negative or bad, or positive or negative. Everything is neutral until we polarize it or utilize it for something that's maybe negative.
That's
And so that's why it all goes down to our consciousness and becoming good people, compassionate people. And how do we do that? Well, deep down, like as cliche as it sounds, we're all beautiful, divine souls, but we've been clouded with traumas and experiences, and we've been robbed of pure love in our families and a lot of and with our governments, because that's the whole
yeah.
archetype thing with our dad, that
Yeah.
daddy issue, government,
Exactly. Yeah.
in a way that we we aren't able to be our pure essence, our pure self. So the more we're able to move into that and become sovereign beings, then the more we're able to utilize these technologies in a conscious way.
And we just have to move to making decisions out of love instead of fear. We're such a fear-based society.
Yeah.
The sooner we can move into, well, I really love doing this. Like, let me make this decision because I love this, as opposed to, I need to do that because if I don't, somebody will be disappointed or so-and-so won't like it, right?
Right. It's so interesting how programmable we are. Like
It
we're
is.
programmed from childhood, and we're programmed to, like, the programs on TV literally install a lot of fear in us. And you would think the world is completely like gone to hell if you just watch the news all the time. But if you really look at the amount of deaths in the world, the amount of sickness, the amount of famine, we're actually at an all-time low than we have ever
Which is
before.
great. Yeah.
Right. But
So we
it's
actually
no
are
one
going the
ever
right
thinks that.
direction.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people think that we're not that way because of what's been put out there. It's just like we're programmed. And so we could program ourselves in a positive way, but then the ultimate goal is to not allow the external reality to program us at all
Yeah.
and come from this inner truth. And Billy Carson speaks well on this topic because he that within the Sumerian scriptures, it talks about a genetic manipulation that gave us the worship gene. And the worship gene is when we worship externally.
Mm.
And this gene was able to be switched on and off. And when the gene is off, we worship internally. We look for what's within. When it's switched on, we're looking externally. So there's
The
something to
next,
do with that in genetics.
so the next program we need is one that shuts that off.
Exactly. I think that's what's happening. Oh, with all the other DNA that's coming online at the same time.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
it's being said that we're switching from, the carbon-based DNA structures into crystalline or silicate DNA
Yeah.
structures and stuff. So, that's going to make a difference in how we see the world and how we go about the world and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Exactly. We're becoming an entirely new human.
We are. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
It is, yeah.
I'm looking forward to all those changes. I think, but as human beings, we don't like change, right? So we have to have stuff happen that people perceive as huge things in order for us to step into change.
Yeah. And change is inevitable, right? So we're afraid of it, but it's definitely going to be there, and it's just going to be, we need to, what's happened on the planet so far has not been working for the collective of humanity, maybe for some of us. And if we want to live in a world where we're all able to live in peace, harmony, all able to live, survive, have food, not be in fight or flight, because not only are the people that are in starvation in fight or flight, but even people in the US in a beautiful home that have to work every day 9 to 5, even that is technically survival, right?
Mhm.
When we shift out of the survival instincts, what else is there for us? What other senses can we tap into?
Absolutely, because we only tap into a very small percentage of what
Yeah.
we're actually capable of
Exactly.
doing. So very cool. So I understand that well, I've seen you on at the two conferences that I've been at for the Alliance. Uh,
hmm
and I understand that you'll be coming to speak at the conference again this year.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm just wondering, can you give us a little preview about what you might talk about, or is this not decided yet, which is totally fine too?
I haven't decided yet. And last year we hosted it on Portal to Ascension, so we're gonna host it again. And I think I'm gonna be one of the MCs as well again.
Awesome.
And yeah, I haven't thought about it. I last year I did like a UFO disclosure timeline, but this year I'm feeling like and my presentations are shifting into what a new world could look like post disclosure, you know,
Hmm.
and so there's so many institutions like when it comes to education, healthcare, energy,
Hmm.
transportation. That's just to say a few, and all those connect to the ET question, but the ET connection connects to a bigger picture of the consciousness, right? So I think my presentation will probably go into like practical information on these are even justice, criminal justice. I want to speak about that a bit probably, and how we are dealing with these things now, and as we shift in consciousness, how we could approach these things, in a way that is more harmonious and compassionate.
Yeah, that's great because the world needs hope. right now,
Okay.
right? They need a roadmap. So, the more we can spread that kind of information and those kinds of options and let people know that that is a possibility, the more we
Yeah.
can bring hope.
Yeah, and we need to know, envision that there is another way to do the things that we've been doing, like, and a better way to do it, the system, like, we're just on autopilot, and it goes back down to the fact that we're too busy trying to figure out how to live and survive for the most part to even so we just allow the governing to happen from people that are mostly inherently corrupt
Mm-hmm.
and don't have our best interest in mind.
Yeah.
Even the positive governments in the world, you know, they're just able to hide it better than the others. you know, it's
Yeah, for
crazy.
sure. There's definitely a lot of controversy in the political realm of things, for
Yeah,
sure. I think that there are some good people there, but it's difficult when
yeah.
you've got so
Hey,
many
and there's
people
good
involved.
people. There's good people that can't let their goodness shine.
Yes, that's
And I mean, I don't want to get into names. We can talk about people right now, but there's those that I thought really were going to be the ones. And then I saw things that happened where they basically had to become like they acted like a defeated dog, like a beaten down dog, because they had to fall in line, even though they tried to fight for something else.
which is sad, because
Yeah,
that's how, I think the whole purpose of democracy in that way is that we bring different thoughts and ideas together and then collectively decide on the best option, as opposed to, strong arming into the current agenda, sort of,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So,
And yeah, democracy, like I forget, it was the Sean Ryan show, another big podcast, million plus people on YouTube, that's bringing in all these people, right?
yeah.
And it was saying that in democracy, so he had a colonel called Tim something that I reached out to because he does USOs, unidentified submerged objects, and he's a government
Okay.
colonel. And he was talking about democracy and how democracies needs maintenance, right? Just like anything does. And we basically created democracy and then we stopped maintaining it. And then we allowed people to take and take from it. And now it's not working because there was no regulations in order to sustain it. Very simple, oversimplified example would be term limits for congressional members.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than like always trying to make sure that you can have this job for the rest of your life and just try to pander and lie to your people, you only have this certain amount of time to actually have a contribution. You know what I mean? Things like that. So
Yeah, it's true. Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of a new political system in terms of how do we make that happen? How is that does it have to go through a big overhaul like, can we actually do an overhaul? Or does it need to be complete change? That'll
yeah,
that'll be the stuff that'll be, I'm sure, up for discussion as we go forward, right?
right.
So,
And jokingly, I'm like, I gotta preface this. I'm kind of joking here, but I'm also a little serious. Is the best governments in the past have been benevolent dictators. No joke. Like the Kush Kingdom that was in modern day Iran and Afghanistan thousands of years ago. The Ashoka the Great, the first emperor of the whole of India, there were dictators that literally got him. The Ashoka the Great became Buddhist and he taught non-compassion information and non-violence to his whole community, and India thrived at a level that's never has been done before. And what's
mhm,
happening now, democracy is great because we all have a say. But it's getting to a point where it's so polarized that one side just cancels the other side out and there's no progression. There's no collective resolve for it. So we need to come to a place, and even the story of King Arthur, there was this one individual that had done the inner work with a council of advisors that he listens to in order to make things happen. Again, half joking, half truth, but that's just how the past has been.
it's true. It's true. I can
Yeah,
see that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So, bringing up King Arthur,
Mm-hmm.
you have a
Oh,
big,
perfect segue.
it's a great segue. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a big thing coming up. When is
Yes.
that happening?
Okay, so September 26th weekend, 26th to 28th, we have our annual conference in Glastonbury, England, which is on the west of England in Cornwall area, I think it is, close to Cornwall. And basically, it's Portal to Ascension, Glastonbury. In Portal to Ascension, we do around 60 events a year, most of them are online. And then I have an annual event in San Diego, one in the UK, and we do retreats and tours. So this event is, even though it's 3 days for the conference, it's actually a 6-day experience you can be part of, where on the day before the conference, we do a tour of ancient Avalon. We go to King Arthur's Abbey, we go to the Chalice Wells, the White Springs, all ancient areas that have a lot of significance to the ancient Celts and the Druids that were there. So we have the 3-day conference, 23, 24 speakers are going to be there. And then we go on a post-conference workshops on Monday, and then we have a stone circle tour on the Tuesday. So anybody who wants to attend, they can come for the conference, or they can be part of the whole thing. Website Ascension Glastonbury. And just wanted to say about like why I'm doing it there. Like, of course, the story of King Arthur is that when he died, actually he was taken to Avalon, and Avalon, which is Glastonbury, used to be surrounded by water. But there's so many things in that area. I would say that it's probably the spiritual like center of England, and it's also like it's very really has a lot of pagan connections still there. Like when you go down the street, metaphysical stores, pagan stores, dragons stores there, and people dressing up all types of amazing and interesting ways. You know what I mean? Um, all types of conscious events, spirituality. If anybody knows about Sedona and Mount Shasta, it's almost like if they got together and had a baby. You know, it's like that's the Glastonbury. Now, the ancient
Yeah.
history of Glastonbury is that the Christian church, Mary Magdalene's lineage, actually, and supposedly she actually went there before the Roman Catholic Church hijacked Christianity. Christianity was taken to this area. Joseph of Arimathea, which was Jesus's uncle, and then Mary Magdalene brought in this divine feminine lineage there, which was also hijacked and then stumped out multiple times, including with the Catholics at a later point. And so there was like this authentic raw Christianity there that was based on Yeshua's teachings, that wasn't a part of any cabal or any type of secret society. The ancient Druids in that area, they actually combined with Christianity in a way where they weren't forced. It was almost like a coming together of ancient traditions, and they still practiced the Celtic ways and the traditions during that time, and which is why King Arthur's story is so prevalent in that area too, because Merlin was a druid, and King Arthur was King Arthur with the cross, right?
Yeah.
Christianity and Druidism coming together. So the story goes deep there. There's even an area called King Arthur's Abbey where there's the tombstones of Guinevere and King Arthur. Probably isn't done because they used it for symbolism for 1,000 years afterwards, just for that story. But it just shows you the deep connection there. And then the last out of many other things I want to share is there's also a very central ley line point. There's something called the Michael line that starts in Egypt, goes through southern France, through France, and ends in Glastonbury. Now, this is an important line because this is supposedly where Mary Magdalene and possibly Jesus, because I think he actually didn't get crucified, and there's a lot of information that shares that he probably didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Egypt after the whole crucifixion thing went down, even though like during that time, went to Egypt because Egypt was huge for Yeshua. That was like where he got a lot of information, a lot of mystery schools. And then they followed the Michael line through southern France, which is why we have the Mary Magdalene stories in southern France. And then they ended up in Glastonbury, where the ley lines meet. And there's a central ley line there that's supposedly the heart chakra of the world. And there's these waters flowing. One has high concentration of iron in it, and I forget what the other one is. One's masculine and feminine. So these two masculine and feminine ley lines intercept with each other on this most epic hill with this structure on top of it that was an ancient druidic ceremonial site for thousands of years, and then was put a Christian thing was put on top of it like they usually do, you know what I mean? And so we're gonna actually start on Thursday. We're gonna actually start by doing a ceremony like we did last year. So every year we do a ceremony on top of that area where the ley lines meet, basically giving our respect to the reverence of and reverence to the spirits of the land as a ceremony, and then we start the conference.
That's awesome. Well, and
Mhm.
Egypt brings in another aspect of the ET thing. There's a lot of talk about the Egyptian gods being connected to ET races.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
have you found any of that in your research?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like even the like Osiris connected to Sirius, right?
Hmm.
And then the pyramids all connected to Orion's belt,
Yep.
right? So there's just all types of stories and different beings in Egypt were connected to different star systems. It seems like Egypt could have been like kind of like an airport or like a way station for different types of beings from different places. One thing
That's my sense too, that it
one
was
thing that I
definitely
have been getting into is the research of these structures being communication devices to other stars as well. So
and
like maybe
the electrical system, right?
yeah.
Related.
Hmm. Well, it's pretty much to me, it's kind of like been proven now through Graham Hancock's work, through J.J. Hurtak's work, especially, and Billy Carson as well, Robert Edward Grant too, all great luminaries, that the pyramids were used as hydrogen create they were creating hydrogen, extracting hydrogen from water. And hydrogen is the most prevalent element in the whole of the solar system and the best element to send instantaneous messages to other places. And there's been even types of crystals wrapped around these pyramids that we now use in telecommunication devices and even our phone lines. It's a
Yep.
type of selenite. So it's like even the stone structures around it seem to be for amplifying signals and messages. And then we have the hydrogen connection. And the hydrogen connects to two things: energy and electricity and power, and also communication, right?
Yeah. It's fascinating how all of that fits
Yeah.
together, right? And they've been
Mm-hmm.
doing it for much longer than what we have in our history books. So,
Yeah.
so that's awesome. So did you have any final thoughts about ETs that you wanted to share? Because we're just coming up
Oh,
to our hour.
yeah, I'll say that I'll share about the alliance, my connection to the alliance.
Please.
Yeah. So when they connected with me and asked me to be a part of this event and what they're doing in order to basically be an ambassador, created an embassy for communication with ETs. I was really happy to be a part of it because I feel like a lot of this has been left in the esoteric world for too long, and
Mhm.
it's time to really ground this into practicality of what is the next step and places where we can interact with them, communicate, and work on policies and exopolitical kind of information on what are we going to actually do when we trade and communicate with them and how can we even get to that point, I think is very important. So to me, it's like the a necessary next step in the channeled information, in the
Yeah.
esoterics, in our ancestry, in the ancient alien connection, is this is a reality. And there's going to be a day where we're going to be having interaction with them, trading with them. Maybe we'll be getting technology from them, and it can be argued that a lot of technology we currently have has been left here by them as well, right?
Yeah.
So, so I'm really excited to be a part of it and see the alliance grow in and get all the support that really it needs in order for people, whether they're going to be part of the alliance or part of an embassy or not, but just to realize that we need to start grounding in this information into reality and not prepare in a fearful way,
Yeah.
but prepare in a way where we're shifting our consciousness to be ready for this. And I know a lot of people attending these events are at that level, but the reason why they call us way showers, right, is because many of the people on the planet aren't. So what this really is it's you learning to become the teacher for what's about to happen. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
and that's a general thing for everybody, I guess. I'll leave it at that. Is that if you listen to this now, you're at the beginning phases. Every 2,000 years, every time there's a zodiac shift on the earth, a new religion comes on the planet. Take a look at the zodiacs. Every 2,000 years, a new religion takes over the planet, right? And it's always based on the zodiac. Why is the Pisces fish Jesus? Because Pisces, come on, it's just insane. You can predict this stuff at this point. And we're at another one, right?
Yeah.
And we're at one where it's the religion of no religion, what I like to call non-dogmatic spiritualism. That's the new reality that we're moving into. So it's been destined in the stars. And just like there were the 13 apostles in the beginning of these 2,000 years ago, all of us are apostles for this new information, and so just like receive it, and just don't go into it with fear. Just be open to this new world. But I would say that everybody listening now, we're really going to be the teachers for this new paradigm.
Absolutely. So openness and curiosity. Openness, curiosity, and love would be great
Yeah.
things to go forward with.
Exactly.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us today, Neil, and we're
it.
looking forward to hearing you speak at the at our convention this year as well, and for hosting as well. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tanys. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.